It's the summer of '77, and the Blyton Summer Detective Club has successfully unmasked the Sleepy Lake Monster. Turns out it was Old Man Wickley all along, and he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. Now, if you're from North America, a line like that is a sure tip-off that we're in some serious nostalgia territory. I'm of that age where a lot of my youth is currently being mined for its media properties. We have the 80s throwback with Stranger Things, Steven Spielberg's upcoming love letter to the 80s based on Ernest Cline's novel Ready Player One, not to mention the return of the Karate Kid on YouTube Red that reunites Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso nearly 30 years later. And now, Meddling Kids, which sees author Edgar Cantero mine the rich nostalgic vein that is Scooby-Doo. We're following the adventures of 4 kids and their dogs in the Zoinks River Valley of Oregon. Now, initially I worried that this was going to be a little bit too on the nose, but Cantero does the smart thing and keeps the references down to Easter egg level as opposed to full-blown scary movie parody. Even the Blyton Summer Detective Club is a knowing wink to Enid Blyton's famous 5, which sees 4 kids and their dogs solving mysteries. She wrote these back in 1942, and I've never heard of it, but it is common currency as the Hardy Boys in the UK. She would go on to write 21 stories featuring the famous 5, which was a mere drop in the bucket of the nearly 750 stories that she would go on to write in her lifetime. The Sleepy Lake Monster would be the last case of the Blyton Summer Detective Club. 13 years have passed as we revisit the now scattered team. Andrea, she'd prefer you called her Andy, is a Latino, lesbian, militarily trained, hard-ass wanted in 2 states. Failed bio nerd Carrie is spinning her bio postgrad wheels, working a dive bar in New York and waking up from recurring nightmares in her dingy apartment. Nate is holed up in an insane asylum in Arkham, Massachusetts, where he still talks to Hollywood star Peter, who died by suicide several years earlier. Clearly, the years have not been kind to the Blyton Summer Detective Club, but Andrea feels like it is time to get the gang back together and answer some of those niggling questions still surrounding their last case. And it gets dark fast. When I first started this, I thought this was just a YA thriller that wasn't going to hold my interest. And if I'm going to be honest, I found the writing a bit wooden, the character dialogue a bit clunky. So fine, not high literature, but I still think of this as great fan fiction. It's imagining the Scooby Gang years later, how adulthood hangs on our childhood heroes. Scooby-Doo meets H.P. Lovecraft. And there are some seriously creepy goings-on happening here. And I'll give Cantero credit, he keeps me guessing throughout. This is far more thrilling than some greedy dude in a rubber mask. Fast food reading, to be sure, but one that sent me down several rabbit holes thinking about Scooby and his gang. One fan theory posits that these are a bunch of counterculture, draft-dodging hippies on the run to Canada to try and escape the Vietnam draft. Sort of makes sense, but it doesn't really do much to explain a talking dog. The other theory is that the entire series is the imagination of one Norval Shaggy Rogers, who escapes in a drug-induced haze with his favorite pet dog. He imagines befriending the very bullies that torment his life during the day. Fred, who beats him up, Velma, who calls him stupid, Daphne, ugly. That makes a little bit more sense because as you get older, you can't help but wonder exactly what were in those Scooby snacks that engendered such a rabid fervor in this hippie teenager who seemed to always have a terminal case of the munchies. And then I hopped over to comics. DC recently decided to reboot a bunch of Hanna-Barbera properties, including Scooby-Doo with Scooby Apocalypse. I was super excited. The writing team of Geffen and DeMatteis, who are responsible along with Kevin Maguire, who is an absolute genius at drawing facial expressions, for the seminal run of Justice League back in 1987, which tops my list of favorite runs along with Claremont and Byrne's X-Men and Wolfman and Perez's run on Teen Titans. So you can imagine how disappointed I was when Scooby Apocalypse turned out to be an absolute slog. It's dense, it's wordy, unwieldy, and ultimately joyless. But fortunately, that was not the only Hanna-Barbera property to get a reboot over at DC. More so than Scooby-Doo, Flintstones defined my childhood. I remember running home for lunch to the babysitters to grab my bowl of macaroni and cheese and hot dog wieners, plop myself in front of the TV to watch the Flintstones. We knew it was time to go back to school when the Flintstones ended and David Emery's Agri-News came on talking about corn markets and hog futures. Yes, I am that old. I grew up in the agrarian age. The Flintstones comic reboot by Mark Russell and Steve Pugh is absolutely fantastic. It is way better than any comic surrounding a prehistoric man should be, and it explores issues of religion, monogamy, the military-industrial complex populism, consumerism, PTSD, existential dread, and death. And it just strikes the right tone. It's smart without taking itself too seriously, and it shows what a great reboot can do. It's well worth checking out. You should check out the 12-issue run. It was fantastic. And as if I haven't gone far afield enough already on this tangent, last week's video talking about childhood food sparked a ton of comments, including one from Bricky who mentioned a love of peanut butter Captain Crunch, which sounds like my new favorite cereal. So that sent me out on a hunt for sugar cereals. Here in Canada, we are almost puritanical in our cereal consumption, and something like Corn Pops is considered decadent here. So nowhere could I find the Flintstone line of cereals, including Cinnamon Pebbles, Cocoa Pebbles, Fruity Pebbles, and Marshmallow Fruity Pebbles, to say nothing of Peanut Butter Captain Crunch Came Up Empty, which just destroyed me, let alone anything like Donut Sprinkle Crunch, Home Run Crunch, Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries, and the ridiculously named Oops All Berries. I guess I'm grateful that these sugar bomb cereals didn't exist when Kay was younger, so we didn't have to contend with this in the grocery aisle. But now that I'm a full-grown adult, nearly an empty nester, I demand to have some of these sugar cereals. And I'm incensed that they're not available to me. All right, I am just rambling now. I would love to know what TV shows you grew up with when you were younger. With our daughter, it was Teletubbies, which was like TV crack for her, as well as Blue's Clues. We were there for the transition from Steve, yay, to Joe. No. And then as she got older, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Hannah Montana, and The Wizards of Waverly Place. Thank God that era is over. So, yeah, what did you watch when you were younger? In the meantime, I hope you all have a great week of reading, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.